Okay, hello everyone. Hello. Good to see you all.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
From many exotic corners of the globe today, which I love. And today we've come to throw into the fire all our different pieces of insight and experience and wisdom around the heart in business. And I say that because I just said the art in business before pressing record. So the heart in business and all the delicious, juicy flows that come from that. So I've just explained to you the format, and just to re-explain to those who are watching or listening, we're going to go around the table, really taking our time to kind of share our connection with this topic, and then to kind of reflect, to respond, and to go deeper together for the next 50 minutes to an hour. So the table that is in front of me is going to be Kat, Lloyd, Angie, myself, and Bob. So in this first round, just inviting us to share who we are, what we do in the world, and our connection to this theme, and anything you want to start us off with. Yeah. So Kat, would you like to kick us off?
Well, this is my favorite topic. So I'm Kat, the founder of the True Business School and the True Business Model, which allows you the gift of leading with your heart in business, leading with your creative spirit, connecting to source, and leading with that connection. So rather than the sport of profit making, which I found for me left me disconnected, stressed, anxious, burnt out, worried all the time. Now with True Business and bringing heart and divine inspiration into business, for me that's been transformational. It took me from burnout to flow and freedom to living my true nature and purpose. And so I'm being really aligned with my creativity and what wants to be expressed through me. So now it's all about introducing that to other people. I think there's about 200 people have used the model already in 14 countries, and the impact is profound. It's there's a shift, there is a transformation when we bring heart and divine inspiration. Especially I particularly love that aspect into business. And for me, it's the leading edge. It's not typical in business. And for me, that's exciting. I'm like a natural pioneer. That's what I love, to go off and find things and bring them back. That invites a social innovation and a progression in human evolution. So that for me is where this is the frontier of business that's exciting and radical and game-changing for me right now. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah. Juicy. Lloyd.
Cool. Hello, everybody. I'm Lloyd Burnett, and I'm coming to you live from San Diego, California. And I'm known as the Gentle Entrepreneur. That's the name of my signature program that I do. And I support holistic, heart-centered, conscious entrepreneurs in accessing the abundance that they're ready to access by standing in the fullness of their purpose and getting their work out into the world to be experienced by those who are ready to experience their work. And I feel very connected to this topic because I've been on a journey of my own of standing in the fullness of my purpose and getting my work out into the world to those who need to experience it. And the journey has taken me to completely business focused, which, as Kat was talking about, it doesn't really feel that great. Completely focused on the numbers, the profit, and measuring my impact on this world based on how many people come through my programs. Abundance-wise, that felt pretty good, but there was something missing. And the journey next took me to completely heart-centered, where I, in a sense, turned my back on some of my greatest gifts, which are architecting systems and structures and containers to hold the juiciness of my heart. And that left me flailing in my business, and it left me flailing in my bank account as well. And that journey has brought me to a place where I find myself supporting others in discovering the fullness of their heart so that they can build a container around it in their business and give some structure to that juiciness so that they can, in a sense, claim their stake of the abundance on this planet, because I feel that it's really important for us healers to assume our responsibility to be wealthy and to use that wealth in ways that wealth is not being used right now by those who control it. And in this reality, yes, it's really important to lead with our heart, but it's also important to speak to society and people in this reality in terms that they understand, and to use the structures of this reality as well. And so my work right now is supporting entrepreneurs in discovering and really feeling their heart and building a container around there that with using resources that typically they feel very turned off or burned by, such as funnels and automated webinars and tracking sheets and things like that. So that's me, and that's what I do.
Thank you.
I'm having some hallelujah moments
Hallelujah.
over here. I feel like I have found my people, like everything you said. Thanks for being in this world, Kat and Lloyd. I'm so excited right now to be in your company. My name's Angie Cole. I am creator of Untaming the Wild. And yes to all that. I do all those things. And I'm guessing, much like you, I had to create that language for myself. As I started my business journey 7 years ago, what I discovered first were all the things that felt really gross. I remember being on my first call as I was like, okay, I'm going to be a coach. I need to hire a coach. I'm going to find a coach. And I remember being on this sales call with this guy who was like selling. He wasn't the coach, but he was like selling for the guy who was the coach. And it was the quintessential high pressure, fear-based, here's the 6-step plan. You are going to be a complete loser without it. Like your life is over and you have no hope of ever doing anything good. And your family's going to be ashamed of you. Like it was that, like it was, I just remember sitting on the call being like, and knowing. So for me, so much of this comes back to instinct. And I would use that interchangeably with heart. But just kind of my core knowing, my core compass for what feels good and what feels gross. And I remember sitting on that call, oh, I have chills all over. I remember sitting on that call, number one, knowing that I didn't want any part of this. 2, knowing that I was for sure that my calling was to be a coach. I've known that forever and ever and ever. It's just how it was put together. So knowing that not doing it wasn't an option. And then 3, having this intuitive sense, even though I was new in my journey, that what I was going to continue to find was more of that. Like I just had this sense, like this isn't an anomaly, this is the norm. Like I could feel the scriptedness of it. And so, you know, my journey since then has been, for that reason, listening to my own instinct and my own intuition about what else was possible. So if not that, what? If I know that that's not for me and that feels gross, and I know I can't be the only one. And as I continued to, you know, attract clients in my baby years, knowing that they also thought that was gross, and was like, okay, great. At least I'm not alone in this. And I hadn't thought about this part for a while, but as I was listening to the two of you, the other part of that for me was, I know that my brain is atypical in a lot of ways. I identify as someone who has the brain patterns of someone with what we now call attention deficit disorder, which means so much of that shit does not work for me. Just does not, and never has. Like, don't tell me. My first coach that I hired, who I actually love a lot, and hired him on purpose because he's like way on the other side of really masculine energy, really structured energy, really like brain. He was like, well, we're just going to track this thing every day. I was like, oh, I'm screwed. Like right there, from it, done. Forget it. Can't, like, it's not happening. That is, I've been trying to do something every day since I was 5. And I can't even like brush my teeth at the same time every day. Like that is just not something that's available to me. But as I tried to go on this business journey, that was everything I could find. You have to be consistent, and consistent means this: you do the same time, same thing, same time every day. And you have your miracle morning, and you have your routine, and you have your thing, and you track your metrics. It's just like, that's it. I'm fucked. Game over. Like, I can't do it. It's not going to happen for me that way. So if it's not going to happen for me that way, I have to find my way. And my way is witchy and wise and flowy and playful and sexy and yummy and pleasure. And like, that's my way. And so what kept happening, and again, God bless my first coach. Shout out to Greg Faxon. He's amazing. He like brought that other masculine structure part to me. But, you know, he had all these like marketing and ideas and all these things. And I was like, the right people just come. Like cool people just keep showing up and wanting to work with me. And that's all I know how to do. And I'm just going to keep doing that because that's really working. And again, fast forward 7 years and I've got a thriving coaching practice filled with the most juicy, amazing, stellar human beings making more money than I've ever made in my life, Lloyd. Yes, to making all the money.
Mm-hmm.
I want us to have all of it so we can do amazing, just loving things with it. And that's my marketing plan. Like, it's as much magic as it is anything else. And I don't understand it. And the only way I know how to teach it to other people, which is part of what I do now, is you got to be turned on and excited and happy and joyful and free and rested and you know, and really be in alignment with your heart. So back to the heart of business. And last thought, that we have systematically, you know, I used to put straight white men like out of this category, but I've actually come to understand that they're in this with us too. We have systematically been taught out of trusting our instincts, trusting ourselves as a guide and as a decider. We've been, indoctrinated to look outside, to look for the book, to look for the guru, to look for the teacher. And so that's a lot of my work too, both my path, but now also my work is let's first understand all those things that have taught us to be suspicious of our own instinct and intuition. And then once we understand what those things are and why they're there and kind of how they got there to the degree that that's helpful, then how do we find that part of us that knows and then learn to trust it again? Because it knows. We always know. We know what's the best move for us. Nobody else knows. So my work as a coach, we can get on the what an actual coach is soapbox maybe in another round. I'll reserve that for now. But my role as a coach isn't to tell you what to do. My role as a coach is to help you connect with your instinct and your intuition and your own knowing so that you can actually be super efficient and cut out all the crap, cut out all the other stuff that's not for you. There we go. That's all I'll say about that.
Oh, thank you. Oh, I need to take a breath because there's so much already like wisdom coming through, and I can feel myself being kind of tentative in that I'm Edward, I'm a spiritual coach, I'm a body psychotherapist, I'm the founder of the temple. And I kind of I have seen myself a bit as a social entrepreneur. Like me and Rob founded a charity when we were in London. We were working with gay men with HIV, delivering workshops. Now we're running the temple. And what that Lloyd said really struck a chord in that, you know, the bank account isn't thriving. My bank account isn't thriving. And so hearing all of what you're sharing is really, really interesting. And I'm really excited to also be experiencing this personally and professionally today. And what I feel like I bring to this conversation, or what I can bring to that, is my personal experience with this. With what, you know, I've worked with Kat, which has been amazing. A couple of years ago, we did some wonderful work, which really helped set me on a path from looking out. Well, it started to set me on a path from looking outside of myself at, like, what's the next course, what's the next way of doing it, what does this teacher do, how do I do it this way? Oh, well, I'm a healer, so it has to be, you know, a workshop or a retreat, or it has to be a session. So suddenly working with Kat and realizing, oh, you know, how Crete is such a massive part of, you know, my life and my work, and I want to bring people to the island, and I want to, you know, create these soul quests and other really, really juicy ways of working. And I'm in this phase now of really dancing with those two things, being really kind of seeing and being shown all the ways that I'm still, like, you know, looking outside of myself for, oh, what's the next thing? How does this guru do this? How should I present myself on Instagram? And being at the same time, I would say, very connected to my heart and really clear on this is really what I want to be doing. And my personal, and what I support my clients to do, is to actually to step into that kind of alignment, to step into that space of what I would call maybe heart-centered leadership, you know, authentic leadership, which is truly saying, this is what I want to be doing. You know, this is what I am, and I'm owning it, and I'm going for it with 100% of my focus, or 100%. I think that might be impossible for us human beings, but, you know, as much as I can put into that river, into that flow. So yeah, it's beautiful to receive this wisdom. I'm excited to kind of be in this space and to come from it from both my personal learning side, which I don't feel like I'm there, you know, and at the same time, this, which, you know, a real clarity in myself and in my work that I bring to my clients. So yeah, that's me for now.
Yeah, so I'm Rob. As Ed said, I also support with the temple, and I'm a body psychotherapist, but I'm also an executive coach and mentor, and I work with NGOs and non-profits around fundraising and business strategy. And listening to you all speak, the first thing that kept popping into my head is, like, I'm not a business person. I don't work in business, which is rubbish. But in my head, my ego is telling me I'm not in business. I'm detached from that. I have this aversion to capitalism and the whole picture that I have in my head of what that actually is. And my career that I had for 20 years before I became sort of self-employed as a consultant was as chief executive of an NGO in London. And so my career has always been working with non-profits in that sense. And the work that we did in the charity was about supporting young people, supporting elderly people to make the best of their life, to believe in themselves and fulfill their potential, and not to become stuck in an image of what they were told they should be. You know, you're a young black man in the city and you've got limited educational qualifications, so therefore your life will look like this. And it was about teaching them that actually, no, you can be what you want and you can follow that. Or you're a refugee from Iran or Iraq, and it's like this whole thing around maximizing someone's potential by making them believe in themselves. And so I have this image in my head, like, I'm not business, that's nothing to do with me. And then listening to you all speak, the thing that came to my mind was this whole topic of heart in business. It's about undoing the human experience. And by saying that, I mean that my image of business has been manipulative, capitalism has been manipulative, trying to create, you know, as you said, Angie, like the create the fear, create the desire from something through that state of being, then for me, the human experience is that we start from this space of being an innocent child, and then we quash our instinct because of how we receive love. So we adapt our behavior. We're conditioned beings. So we adapt our behavior to receive the love, to receive the food, to receive the support from our parents, our caregivers. And so from the very first start of our birth, we start to squash that instinct and be manipulated by life. And so for me, the idea of putting heart in business, it doesn't just start in the business. It's that whole human process of reconnecting with our instinct and trusting ourselves, not feeling as though we have to be something. We have to live from the mask that's acceptable to other people. You know, this is the way everybody else does it to make money. Therefore, that's the way I have to do it. And so for me, it's like that big whole circle that goes round about actually just as a human being in our life, in business and outside of business, developing that self-trust, developing that self-belief. And I think that the abundance comes because we are energetic beings. We are connected through energy. And so when you are operating from that space of trust, self-belief, and for want of a better word, because that's what we're here for, heart, people connect to that. People actually will see that that's the space that you're coming from, and they won't feel that they're being manipulated. They won't feel as though they're being bribed in some sort of way. That they come to that space, they come to that open-hearted space of connection that you're offering. And I think that's where the abundance comes from.
Great. Kat, do you want to take the second round?
Are we going round again?
Yeah.
Yeah. What I'm, as I'm listening to you all, I'm really excited about this shift in business that's underway. You know, Lloyd, you referenced that you went through like the capitalist system, and then you went through just a completely heart system, and now there's the integration. And that's what I'm really enjoying, is the integration of the two. And, you know, listening to you, Angie, too, around like the manipulation aspects and the conditioning, Rob, of the ego. So for me, like I use these tools myself, and it is about like business has become for me an expression of my true nature and purpose. It's become the vehicle for me to express my true nature and purpose, and it never was like that before. You know, that, can you imagine rocking up to, you know, to a corporate business and like, you know, at Google, well, this is a place for me to express myself? It's not. It's a way for you to support Google's agenda and their mission and so on. So this is what I'm really loving about you know, discovering your true business, is it becomes this vehicle for your true expression in the world, and working with the premise, the philosophy that we all have a true nature and purpose, that we're born with that, and that when we're thriving, when we're fulfilling that, there's perfect system. You know, that nothing's out of sync. You're in harmony, and that's what I'm really just discovering in my clients, is that they talk about being in harmony, because they're not only in harmony with themselves, their own heart, their own inner wisdom, but they're in harmony with the universal energy, like their environment around them too. And that's when they start to experience a peacefulness, because they're no longer butting up against something that they're out of sync with. They experience a flow, and they experience a match, like the vibrational match, the basic laws of you know, physics. Their vibration matches with the opportunities that are coming their way. So they start to experience a flow, and that's when they start to begin to trust not only their own heart, but but the universal life itself. And that's when they begin to really, you know, rise. And I'm thinking of a client that came to me just about 9 months ago, just pre-COVID, and it was almost like her intuition knew to line up before. It was amazing. And then COVID happened, and everything was falling away, and she stepped up and started doing these Facebook Live plant-based cooking. And she was in her courage, she was really showing up. You could see her vulnerability to start with, and then she started to progress. And then, you know, because she did that, because she had that active faith in her heart and in the universe, you know, 6 months later, there she is on retreat cooking for the Black Eyed Peas on one of their music retreats. And I'm like, wow, you know, like I just got a whole load of like tingles through, you know, she's loving it, and they're loving her, and she's right where she's meant to be. And for me, that's what I love about when you listen to your heart and you come into that harmony with the universal nature. You're being who you are, showing up where you're meant to be, and life is sweeter, life is healthier, happier, you know. And I'm going through, and the process carries on, right? So I'm going through a phase at the moment where I'm stepping up to grow my own audience. Even though I'm a PR person and I teach people how to do that, I recently became aware that I'm coming up against a limitation. So I can feel like there's an old belief system there. And so you have to take responsibility as well, I think. There's some self-responsibility here of dismantling old egoic belief systems. You know, I had people being visible as vacuous, as compromising my soul, as, you know, oh God, that looks like too much hard work. And so of course I'm not going to step into, when life is calling me into greater visibility, my ego belief structures are going to take me somewhere else. So you have to pay attention to when your heart is, you know, when you're steering with your heart and your inner wisdom, and when your ego is suddenly taken over and you're not aware of it because it's a belief system. You think it's real. So I'm enjoying dismantling that old system, and really I can sense then that life is opening up this pathway for me where I can be both soulful and visible and peaceful and those things, and I don't have to be a frenetic, crazy and mad, oh I'm so excited to be with you kind of person. I can just be myself without makeup in my bikini and still, you know, and that be okay. So yeah, I'm loving hearing the shift that we're all going on, and that so many people are discovering that shift in business, the dismantling of the ego systems and the real coming home to our own inner wisdom, and how that opens up this whole new life energy and life pathway that for me that's the best game that you can play.
Oh yeah, I'm getting chills from what you're saying.
Yeah, that's where I want to be, and I'm really owning as well that it's, for me, it's not just about heart and my own inner wisdom. It's really is about divine inspiration. When I was like thinking, oh, I'm going to share the True Business School, it's like, oh no, you have to put creative inspiration, because creative inspiration will really be much more acceptable to business than the word divine. And you know, and I was like, but creative inspiration has a lower vibration for me. Like divine inspiration for me is transcendent. That's when I feel connected to everything. And that's when I feel like I can go beyond and discover new possibilities. Creative inspiration can still be like, oh yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, let's do it, you know, and it's not transcendent. So I want that transcendent aspect. So I'm like, no, I'm going with divine inspiration. If you love divine inspiration, come and talk to me. That's where I really want to be like in communion with that life energy that moves through us and the stars and the trees and the earth. And that can sound really hippy dippy, and but actually what I'm finding is it's incredibly grounding, and it's part of being human. Yeah, that's me for now. Onwards to the next person on the table.
So cool. I'm really enjoying this conversation, and it's showing me a lot of things that feel really important. And the first thing that's coming up is doing our own work. And I'm noticing how pretty much all of us have been through some tough times on our journey, and we've experienced this extreme, and we've experienced that extreme, and we've begun the integration process of finding, you know, the gifts of both sides. And as I was sitting there and thinking about that, just realizing the gifts of the shadow, the gifts of manipulation, the gifts of urgency, the gifts of all of those kind of icky parts of business that typically turns off of people like us. And I'm realizing that that the first coaching program that I did, which was a really expensive one, and I got on the phone, and I didn't realize in that moment that he was using all of these icky tactics on me. And I was afraid. I was thought I was going to miss out if I didn't purchase, took out a loan and purchased the program. And it was actually the best decision ever. And what I realized is that where I was in my stage of consciousness was a place where I needed manipulation from the heart to motivate me to take action. I needed urgency that is basically manipulation for me to take that step. And throughout this journey of supporting entrepreneurs, I've realized that when we get to a certain level in our own personal growth, we're able to actually dip down into different frequencies, into different levels of consciousness, and use the tools that are there that may not correspond to a tool that would work for us because we're in a different level of consciousness, but use it for the people who need it. So I find myself in sales calls sometimes putting like a date, like you have to respond to me by next week, or there's only 4 spots left and I need your answer. And then other times I find myself, hey, I know that if we are meant to be working together, we're trying to work together. And
Yeah.
if you call me, I know that if it's the moment, I'm going to have a space and you're going to have the money to say, yes, I'm ready to do this. And so it's this beautiful process. And if you study like integral or spiral, you realize that every single level of consciousness has different ways of interacting with it. There are different ways of getting that level of consciousness to motivate and to take action. And when you get to a certain level of consciousness, you're able to dip down and use some of those very triggering resources from a place of heart. And so this is one of the greatest things that I've realized in my business. And it's also one of the hardest things, because that means that you have to do your personal work first to be able to use this breadth of this expansive tool set. You have to do your work first, because manipulation from the shadow, it just doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to the person on the receiving end. It doesn't feel good to the person, doing it. And so that has meant that working with clients takes longer for them to, a lot of clients, takes longer for them to experience the results that this guy over here promises them in 5 minutes, because we have to start with ourselves. And it's just absolutely apparent in this call how much work that you all have done and how that personal work has helped you put your heart into your business, and at the same time, allow your heart to align you to the frequency of where your potential client is, and be able to, in a sense, speak their language rather than the language that you're used to, which is up here. And that's a tool that I find that is really, really important in business right now, especially for us conscious entrepreneurs who have done this work and can use these different resources from the ego, from capitalism, from whatever. We can actually bring them into the light because they're tools that work. Deadlines, they work. Urgency, they work. They feel a certain way when they're coming from the shadow, and they still work. And they feel a different way when they're coming from the light, and they still work. So I'm curious to hear if anybody wants to speak on how they interact with these shadow energies and resources and tactics in their business now, with the current level of consciousness that you have.
I think this is in line with that. I mean, I need to actually digest that more, Lloyd, because I'm seeing, I think I've been doing that without knowing I'm doing it. So hearing you describe that is really helpful in letting me think about how to bring that into my, into that agreement making space. Kind of combining, I think, what Kat was talking about and what you were talking about. I was thinking of examples where kind of we tend to default to what I describe as a masculine energy, because that's really the only model we've been given for business. It's like, this is it, do it this way or else, right? Or you're screwed. And the places where we tend to default, and then you both kind of described examples, and an example for me came up about providing the alternative. That's been a lot of my journey is, as you were describing, Boyd, not going just completely into feminine, because that can be toxic as well. Water is toxic if there's too much of it without, balance. Same is true for feminine, same is true for masculine. If there's too much of a good thing, that's when it becomes toxic. So your example, Kat, about the black eyed peas, and this was actually something Edward and I talked about for one of the podcast episodes, is like having the plan, right? The plan is the holy grail. A masculine energy in business is you create the plan, you predict where you're headed, and then you create a linear, step-by-step, logically mapped out journey from point A to point B, and that's what you do, and you don't deviate from that plan. That is success. Following the plan to completion is what we're rewarded for. So, the first time we step into a classroom when we're 5 years old, that's what we're rewarded for. And that story, Kat, I loved about the black eyed peas, because I'm sure that wasn't her plan. I'm sure she did not have a 5-month plan for getting into cooking for the black eyed peas. Feminine energy around business is about emergence, is about showing up for what arises that is beyond your wildest imagination. It doesn't mean being aimless. It doesn't mean having no idea where you're headed and just kind of showing up with your lollipop and being like, what are we going to do today? It's not naive. It is, there's an aim, there is a direction. I kind of talk about this as wandering, and which I learned by traveling and showing up in old European cities where you can kind of wander the streets and find your way. I'm sure there was an emergence. She knew where she was headed. She had an idea of the kind of experience and the kind of impact she wanted to be having, the kinds of people she wanted to be with. And then this emergent opportunity of being the chef of the black eyed peas comes up. If she had followed a plan, like, this is what I get so excited about, is the feminine actually brings unimaginable, the divine brings possibilities that we could never have created in our 12-step business plan for success.
Yeah.
There's it's efficient. There's an efficiency there. She got there faster than if her linear thinking brain had come up with that plan, because our brain comes equipped with fear creating mechanisms. By design, our limbic brain is there to keep us safe, but it also really gets in the way because it wants us to creep forward and know everything we can know about that thing before we move on to the next step. That's not how in 5 months you cook for the black eyed peas. That's not how that happens. We can't let our limbic brain be the generator of possibility. He's really bad at it. I'm working with a client right now. Another example of that, like, this is the masculine way to do it. This is the feminine way to integrate. I'm working with a client right now who is really considering some pretty massive changes to his business. It's a bigger company. He's not a solopreneur. He's got about 40 employees. they're on their way to 20 million in revenue, in sales, sorry. And he's having to consider letting go of this really masculine business model, right? That growth is linear and upward facing, always. If you're not growing 15% every year, you're failing, period. That's the metric for success. And the idea that there might be a different way to look at that, that there might be some really powerful wisdom in shrinking on purpose and knowing, being able to trust and know when that energy is needed. Again, it's just so powerful. So I think about these things all the time, and it's really fun to have a place to bring them all together with other people. That consistency in that linear, unidirectional, like that's a very masculine energy. And a feminine integration is, you can still be predictable. You can still, the way that I kind of reframe consistency is about being persistent. You can be persistent, you can be reliable, you can be predictable and continually show up in a way that's cyclical, in a way that has a rhythm, in a way that allows for growth and, for expansion and contraction, in a way that is not only sustainable, but that has capacity far beyond a strictly linear unidirectional model. So thanks for inspiring all that. And Lloyd, I don't think I spoke directly to that, but that's because I need to sit with it. But I love, in particular, your distinction about, could be the same conversation, but is it coming from light or is it coming from shadow? Is it coming from the part of me that is afraid not to, right? That's when that shit doesn't work for me. And so much love to my beginning baby coachy entrepreneur self, man. She was scared all the time. She had no idea what she was doing. So of course she mimicked some of those things because she was terrified not to, because she had no idea what it would look like, especially, and she also had no money in her bank account. It's a lot easier to show up confident when you got some money in the bank. It's a lot easier for my light to come out when I got the bills paid. So I love that idea that it isn't even always about changing the conversation. It's about changing my own energy of where that's coming from. I remember having to fake it so hard sometimes in the beginning. I literally had a playlist. I had like these 3 songs that I would put on before a sales call to get myself in the space of, I'm here to serve. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I am on purpose. This is not about getting money in my bank account. This is not about taking something from that person. It's about finding a place of resonance so that they give it with love and joy. Yeah. Thanks for that.
Thank you. Well, there are three words that I kind of take and really inspire and move me actually from everything you've just shared, which are permission, freedom, and edge. And Kat, when you were speaking, I just felt this wave of like inspiration. You mentioned divine inspiration and this kind of permission, and actually from all of you, but this permission to go, yeah, a part of me knows what to do. Maybe stuck in these stories and these beliefs in these old ways, or as you say, Angie, from like the fear-based self that just needs, to pay the bills next month, and it kind of stuck in this kind of box when there's this, I'm feeling this expansive light, this expansive part of me, part of us that just wants, to be given permission to play and to dance and to create. That's what I'm getting from all of these. There's a real sense of freedom that we don't have when we're operating from under this kind of structure, prison, I would kind of call it, of the let's say the over exaggerated masculine. So I love this conversation about bringing the two to balance, the feminine and the masculine. And I think some of you mentioned there's, we all have different words for these. Like, I love the idea of the feminine as the inspiration, and then the masculine maybe the structure, and creating structure for inspiration, but creating structures from inspiration as well. And how do they dance and co-create with each other? That's super exciting. And something I've been kind of exploring, I guess, and writing a bit about is the idea of the temple, hence the name of the temple. And it's the idea of that it all starts with, these temples are the kind of concentric circles of our lives, starting from our connection with source, with our divinity, with our heart as the core temple. And then the more we do that, we kind of extend that sense of presence and being into maybe our body, into maybe our home, into our relationship, into our work, our website, our work with clients. Like, it kind of extends that fountain of source from, like, just this fountain of inspiration and source extending into these different structures. And the way I'm still exploring this, so it's still a work in progress. I really see also the struggles in that, especially actually I would say right now in lockdown, I'm struggling to maintain this connection to source as strongly as I maybe had a month ago. And my addictions are coming up, I'm at home more, there's more frustration with my partner. Like, it's a lot harder to maintain that temple and that kind of what I would love, and this might be in utopia, to really make sacred, my sacred connection with my body, and to look after my home in a sacred way. And that word might not resonate with others, but for me, sacredness is it's exactly what we're speaking to. It's just bringing our divine love into whatever is in front of us. And so there's this dance of, like, I don't know, frustration, and yet there's this like, oh, but I see what's needed, and maybe we can all see what's needed to be doing in our lives, our businesses. And so what's also interesting is that gap for me. Like, how is that gap? Maybe this is a question to take around the table. Like, how, as a practical step, perhaps this is the practical steps we can invite for people who are listening. How do we deal with that gap of I kind of see, and I know, like, I'm connected, and yet there's this gap of coming up against beliefs, perhaps old ways of being, addictive patterns, especially right now. Like, how do we dance between these two? How do we dance between the feminine, the masculine? How do we move it? How do we play with it? So that's a question to throw in there for the. We've got time for another round, at least maybe two. And then Rob, I'll let you speak, of course. But maybe that's something to all speak to when we next speak about that. Yeah. But Rob, you first.
The first thing I have to say is it's really hard to not to be going whoop whoop. Yeah. Just like hold it in, wait for your turn around the table.
And you can, like, can chat, you can scream.
High five.
Yeah. Silent clapping.
Yeah. Now I'm talking. But yeah, the thing that came to me was, and it's something I've said to Ed many times, I say to clients, you're not paying me for the day rate, you're paying me for the 20 years of experience that allows me to do the work that I'm going to do in that day. And it's like the sense of value that this experience, this knowledge that I can put into a day's worth of work is where I come up with my daily rate. That's what I'm worth. And sitting here, I was sitting thinking, the other side of that, like as Lloyd was saying, the inner work. I see 4 people who've done an immense amount of self-work, inner work that's come through in this heart in business. And there's so much value in that perhaps is not recognized in this linear masculine definition of business that we have as these metrics of success. But to me, there's immense value in that. And that's what art in business is. It's allowing yourself to have done that work, that it will come through, and that merging of that with business. And I think it's a question, it goes back to what Ed was just saying, like there's the question of how do we actually value that? And for me, I think it's moving away from those linear metrics of what is success, and the heart comes from what is success to me. Success to me is very different to success to Ed or success to Angie. It's like, what is success for me this year might have been different to me last year. And so it's the heart comes from being always connected to that space of what am I actually looking for? And that might be having the money in the bank account so that I feel more secure and I don't feel the fear as much. But it also might be, actually, I don't want to work 5 days a week. I want to work 2 days a week, and I want to have more freedom, and I want to go traveling, and I want to get in a van, and I want to go to the beach next week and not have to worry about going to work and like connecting online with people. So there's different levels of success. And I think it's the recognition of that and the acceptance of that is that we don't need any longer, we're being called in the current environment not to value as much those old measures. It's like the idea of working 70-hour weeks until you're 65 and then you can enjoy life. It's dead in the water. People don't believe that anymore. And this year, particularly with everything that's gone on and people have had the time to reflect, people are actually looking back and going, what do I want from life? Where is my heart in what I'm doing? I want to be living. I don't want to be working. I want to be living. And I want my work to be the stuff that I love. And I want my work to be my life rather than just having to go to a job. And I think that's what we're being called to do. And I think that I see 4 people around the table that are on that path, on that journey. And for me, that's quite inspiring. And I think it's something that we're asking, the world is asking for. And I think there's the experience, the knowledge that I see in front of me has immense value. And all I can see is the rest of the world putting even more value on that going forward, because they're suddenly waking up to something that is divine inspiration. And I'm looking forward to seeing what comes next for the world and how people connect to that in a different way, and how the experience that I see you all have will contribute to that.
Those are listening with silent clapping. Oh yeah. Kat.
I'd love to just quickly share about the shadow piece that Lloyd was talking about, and then answer your question, Ed. So Lloyd, I was in the PR profession, which is notoriously black, dark arts of manipulation. And and one of the things that was a little bit, when you were talking about you can speak their language, what I found is that when we listen to our heart and our heart's message, what's the one thing your heart wants to share with the world about your purpose or your mission or whatever, and you speak that, and it always comes out very direct, very pure. It goes straight to the heart of those people that you're here to work with and to serve. You don't need to go and look at them and their language and then, listen to what they're saying and then talk it in their language. For me, that's still, that's what I spent, 20 years doing. And I find that the people that I resonate with now are the people that are really speaking their heart and their heart's message and standing for that. And but also so really dropping any need to feel that you have to even speak in their language, because by speaking your heart, you'll be speaking directly to the people that you're here to serve, because that's what you're here for. So for me, that like drops any pressure away as well, that you have to get it right. You have to, because if you listen to your heart and you share that will speak directly to the people that you're here to connect with, and it cuts through noise as well. And I've also, and distractions and other ego stuff, I've also found it's the message that you most need to hear is the message of your heart. And sorry, that's the door banging, and that's a yes. And to listen to that, and it's an invitation to go on the journey as well. the message of your heart is an invitation to you as much as it is to the people that you're that you're here to work with. So that's one thing around the shadow. I'm playing with pricing at the moment. I'm finding that very interesting. I've changed all my pricing, like from £195 to £200, or I'm dropping and I'm just noticing like my reaction to that, and how it suddenly feels a lot more expensive, and it's just a £5, and you're like, what, for the online course. So I'm just playing with that too. And I think that's the thing that we have to do, the dance between the two. You just have to play. You have to experiment. You have to see how you feel, try things out. Don't be afraid to play and to try new things out. And then what you were saying there, Ed, about the dance between the two of, the masculine and the feminine, and then structures and inspiration, but also between moving in and out of our heart, right? Because sometimes we're in our heart and we're in the flow, and then we might be bang, suddenly we're like, whoa, I'm behaving exactly how I used to behave again in traditional business. And I feel disconnected, and I'm tired again. And so suddenly something's hooked you back in. And I just find the best way to bridge that gap is to stop and reconnect, and know, like you were saying, Angie, that the divine isn't linear, and it is super efficient. And if you listen and you take the next step, that's all you need to do. And if just the next step is like that Martin Luther King. You don't need to see the whole staircase. Just take the first step. And for me, that's the dance. That's the joy, because in the linear model, you always know what's coming. And if it doesn't come, you're a bit disappointed, and you think it's down to you, and you've messed up, and da. In the feminine model that I'm enjoying exploring more, like particularly the true business model, is you don't know what's coming, and that's the adventure. That's the fun. You don't know. There might be black-eyed peas to cook for around the corner. And what I've discovered is that life always, if you allow that energy to come through, brings you more than your mind would have imagined. So I could never have thought that I would be living in Antigua, with a black Caribbean man as my partner. My mind would not have comprehended that. I would have thought you'd been smoking or something. I was like, what? But taking steps, and I would miss my family. What are you talking about? How would I afford that? All of these things that come up. But actually, by going step by step by step, that's what life has invited me into. And I'm by the sea, my source, inspiration, and walk with my dog at the sunset, and can commune with the divine in that space. And so these inspired structures that you set up really serve your highest flourishing in the world, because they're divinely inspired. That's what life always is inviting of you, your highest flourishing in the world. That's the premise that I work with in my experience. So that dance, stop, just reconnect, take a breath, just drop in, and just ask for the one step. And I often work with clients who are bridging that financial gap. And like you were talking, like, it's a spiral. It's like, for some people, it's like, boom, they're over and they're in. And some it's not. Some, I've just had a client now, she was doing amazing, and she's gone back into a job that isn't a job. It's a money job. And she's contracting, and her energy, and she's a bit like, oh, and she can't really be bothered to show up. And I'm like, no, come into our circle, because we know your vision. We know where you're going. We know that this is just one of your steps. And we also know that you're going to get so fed up of contracting and reducing yourself to be in this environment that eventually you will be brave enough to follow your own truth and your own offering, and you'll believe in that enough, because you won't be able to go back there anymore, because it is too painful to be there. And so that's the dance for me, is just knowing that it isn't like a straight line.
Yeah.
And if you just take that next step, and if you trust that you're being that if you trust life, or that you know that life has your back and it's always taking you to the highest outcome, then you can let go of it. And there's the practical matters of the finance. So what I would say to that girl is, how long do you reckon you could stay there then save your money so that you can come, you know, so that you then have a structure to serve you to develop when you can, you know, step back into your true business and developing that, because you will do it because it needs to come out of you. So it can be a dance. It's like, you know, Stephen Pressfield, when he writes the books, The War of Art, he was in advertising. He used to go in and out, and, you know, like get the money from the advertising to pay for his next creative project, and until he just, you know, was then off in his own trajectory. So yeah, that's my dance.
Nice.
I love that. I love that dance. And Edward, I want to get to your question, but I'm going to have you repeat it to me in a second. What
was the question again?
Yeah, that would be more challenging than you think.
Make it up.
Yeah.
What's your question now?
I know, I love it because I hear the question and all of a sudden it just starts flowing. I'm like, wow, yeah, this really triggered something, and I just sit with it and then it disappears. And so it was something that came from above down in that you can't hold on to. And so we'll see what is triggered when you ask it again. But I wanted to talk about the contraction. I love that. And I loved, Kat, how you talked about your client who is going back into something that is contracting. And I love the questions that you asked her. Well, how long, you know, can you experience this contraction? And, you know, and then your group is holding her as she's in that contraction, knowing that she is going to get to a space one day where the contraction is too much and she's going to go into something else. And I find that is such an important part of business. Us conscious entrepreneurs, spiritual entrepreneurs, part of our journey is believing that we only have to do something if it feels good, and believing that everything in business has to feel good. And if it doesn't feel good, then it's not aligned. And sometimes for our nervous system to calibrate and to balance to the place that our soul wants us to be, we have to experience that contraction. And sitting with clients and seeing them trying to escape that contraction, it can be so painful. And it's painful for me because I know what that feels like, and it triggers the part of me like, I don't want to go back to that. I don't want to go back to that trying to the contraction. That's the worst feeling in the world, you know? And so it's just this, you know, deep feeling of wanting to just hold them and be like, just hold still in this contraction. Just feel it. Just, you're exactly where you need to be, because if you skip this contraction and jump to where you believe your soul wants you to be, you might spontaneously combust because you're not calibrated yet. And I often invite my clients to really consider something that's different than what they believe in their state of consciousness, which is, I'm only doing things that feel good. I'm going to take the leap out of my job and I'm going to go and become, you know, a coach, a speaker, or whatever. And I invite them to really sit with, is it more harmful to my nervous system, to this human body that I have right now, to take this leap to where I've had glimpses of and visions of what it's going to be like for me once I'm ready there? Is it more hurtful to me right now to take that leap, or to stay where I am and to do them both at the same time? And many times what their soul is asking them to do is to honor their nervous system and to continue doing what they're doing as they're preparing to step into where their soul wants them to be. And I think that this is one of the most important things for spiritual entrepreneurs, that it's okay if things don't feel good in your business. You're not supposed to be in your pleasure and your bliss all the time. Can you imagine having an orgasm 24/7 all day? that it would turn into pain, and you would therefore, like, it would become the new normal. And so, like, you would have to find a new orgasm. So in our business, we're not meant to be in our bliss all of the time. There are times when we have to step into, and this is once again coming back to that beautiful dance, that conversation around the dance of the masculine and feminine, where you may be predominantly essenced feminine, but you still have to step into your masculine sometimes in your business, and that may be the contraction that you feel. But just because you feel that contraction doesn't mean that it's not aligned with who you are and what you're doing on this planet. And then the other thing with speaking our clients' language, and Kat, I totally agree with you that the message from our heart, it pierces any type of resistance that people have, and it gives them an opportunity to really sit with, am I ready to take this step that my soul wants me to take? And I've been experimenting with allowing my heart to direct my business, and kind of creating some sort of merging between my heart and my head. And this merging of my heart and my head, as of right now, I'm noticing that my heart message is still coming through, but it's as if I were speaking to someone in Chinese and offering them a sale in English, and they're just like, if they speak Chinese and they're just like, I don't understand, you're speaking English, I don't understand. It's not changing the message of your heart. It's being so agile and flexible and pulling on all of the experiences and connecting so deeply to your client that you know exactly what they need to hear for them to take the action that their soul is ready for them to take. So it's allowing the piercing message of your heart to come through and packaging it in a way that is so attuned to the present moment and so attuned to the person that you're speaking. And I don't get it right all the time. Sometimes I say something and I'm just like, oh, part of me. All right. And what I've learned is it's a beautiful thing when it happens that it comes from a part of me and it's not really attuned to the moment, because it creates a beautiful learning experience. It creates a moment of vulnerability where I have made a commitment to show up in my sessions and to show up in my sales calls, to show up in wherever and say, hey, you know what I just said? I'm feeling into that right now, and it feels a bit off. Yeah, I'm sorry that, if that landed a different way, but my intention is this, and I'm noticing that it may not have come out the way that is most attuned to our space right now. And when people see that, they immediately, the guard drops, and they begin to trust your commitment to their well-being and your commitment to their space. And one of the most important things that I've learned in my business is to say, I don't know, when I don't know. People ask me, well, where do you expect that I'll be in 3 months if we work together? I don't know. I have no idea. And it's the truth, because we live in a world of infinite potentiality. And I've been told so many times by business coaches that you have to give them the plan of where they're going to be and give them that image. And it's just, I don't know what work you're going to put in. I don't know what your soul is ready to do. I don't know if you're ready to honor what your soul wants you to do. And I'm going to be honest with you right now. And that has been one of the most important things in my business that has created trust in my commitment to the truth of our container. So Edward, can you repeat?
You've answered it. You've answered it in all of that, yeah. Because
Amen.
Really you have. It was just inviting us to kind of find, some practical, some steps, and you've just given like 1,000 in what you just said. So that's beautiful. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
So I want to speak to the contraction theme just briefly and offer some practical inspiration. As you were talking about contractions, I was literally thinking about like birth contraction, and how that's super not pleasant. Like, we're not in our pleasure. A woman's body is not feeling great when she is in contraction, but that's the only way it happens. That's it. It's the only way that thing's getting out of there. And that kind of couples with, you know, something I see a lot in my work and in my own life as I continue to find new edges, is that we have to, well, we don't have to. The places where I have cultivated the greatest unshakable self-trust have come from the times when I've let myself just really fuck it up. Just really make massively glorious mistakes. To do that thing that was against my instinct, to do that thing that I knew didn't feel good, and to do it and to learn from that experience that the sun came up the next day, I was still breathing, everything was fine, everything didn't actually totally fall apart. If we continue to only trust our pleasure and only trust that we will be okay as long as everything feels good, it's actually creating this massive terrorizing fear of anything not feeling great, which is the opposite of resilience. It's the opposite of being able to be nimble and fluid and be with emergence, because emergence is always going to feel terrifying because you don't know if it's going to feel good or bad. And if feeling bad becomes synonymous with life or death, then you're never going to be open to those unforeseen opportunities. So yes to cultivating our ability to be in contraction, make mistakes, and learn that actually it's all going to be fine. Tomorrow's a new day. You can do again. You can choose again. If they gave out PhDs for burning your whole life down and starting over again, I would have 5 of them. So like, it's fine. You're going to be fine. And you know, it might actually be the fertilizer of your garden later on. So speaking to the gap, Edward, you know, here's where I am now. And now I'm hearing these inspiring things. If I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, well, how the hell do I get there? How do I do that when I'm super entrenched, or maybe even in a corporate environment or in a hyper masculine business environment? How the hell do I begin to do that? So counter to kind of the typical way we go about goal setting, which is to add new things, start with no. Start with what you know doesn't feel good. Start with tiny places where you're really clear about what doesn't feel good to you. Even if you don't do anything, and I mean not feel good to you in the out of alignment kind of way, not in the this is really in alignment but it's uncomfortable and I need to go through it, but in a very, like, just really start to listen to your body and your gut around this thing I'm being asked to do by someone else or by me doesn't feel good. Just start with that. Even if you don't do anything differently yet, fine. Like, that part will actually come inevitably if you just start to pay attention to the places that are out of alignment, that don't feel good to you, that you know aren't working. You may have no idea what an alternative looks like. Going back to my story of that really icky sales call, I had no idea what I was going to do instead. But I knew for sure it was not that. I knew for sure that I would never get on a phone call and try on purpose to make someone feel that that person made me feel. I knew that that wasn't it. And I just kind of figured I was going to, like, go down a blaze of glory trying to find something Spoiler alert, it's worked out really, really well. So start with no's, and then just make space. Even if you're in a corporate environment, or if you're in a job, or if you're in a relationship, or you're in some kind of context that is really, really not working for you, you have space. Just create a little more. Just push out that edge just a little bit, and let that be enough. Let that be enough. I heard someone say once, might have been Elizabeth Gilbert, my good friend Liz, nobody's like, we don't do big things. Nobody's ever written a book. All they've ever done is sat down every day and write a little bit and a little bit and a little bit. No, like, we don't actually do big things. We just do small things that add up to big things. So just do tiny things and really celebrate it, and let it be enough. The big thing you're after, the big change that you feel inspired to create, is 100% inevitable if you do that.
Great. I'm just way off time, so I'm going to invite myself and Rob to keep it short. And then what we'll do is we'll just invite you to just have a minute of like a couple of words and how people can connect with the three of you. The one thing, I mean, I'm receiving so much from this conversation. The one thing that comes to me to share as a practice, or as an invitation, as an exploration, is that center of the temple, that our personal connection to source, to life, to divine inspiration, to energy. Like, and this, I'm also telling this to myself for sure right now. It's just to really create a sacred space to allow that energy to flourish, to blossom. I know that when I do that, I know that when we do that, when we, whatever space that is, a morning meditation, a dance, a walk in the woods, a swim, really the invitation to come back to that fountain of just divine intelligence, energy, consciousness, love, compassion. For me, that's the practice, the one practice that sets me back, and then I can just allow that to kind of infuse the rest of my life and the rest of my work and my visions and my practices and my relationships. And then when that's not there, then I see everything else kind of a bit shaky and suffers. So that's for me, and for those who are listening, that's the one kind of practice I would invite. Yeah.
I guess what I have to say sums up what everyone else has just said, and it relating to like the expansion and the contraction. Because for me, I think people have this misconception as you can't live or work from heart if you're in your head. And if you're operating from your mind, you can't be operating from your heart. And if I think about it, like the body is the key, the body is the connection, and dropping into that. And, you know, there's a syntax in the mind that tells the respiratory system to work, and the respiratory system will pump oxygen into the body, which will allow the heart to work. And it's the loop round that keeps the life force moving. It's what allows us to be creative. And you can't always be in the heart. You can't be in a 24-hour orgasm. It's like there's also the mind, and the mind has this valuable role to play to keep us safe. You know, there's a program in there that's given us the rules of life that we need to know in order to know what's safe. And there's the bit in between, which is the intuition that connects the heart and the mind. And the thing that connects those is breath. It's the mind, heart, body connection. And so my advice to anybody would be to breathe through those expansions and those contractions. Don't have an image if it has to be one way or the other. Allow yourself to be in either space, and don't try and fit into something that is an external model to you. Follow your intuition. Listen to what your body says.
Great. Okay, Kat, maybe in a minute, some closing comments on how people can connect with you.
God, well, just to say how much I've loved this conversation, and how, you know, I think that's the one thing that's coming out for me, is just how wonderful it is to have these conversations, and to keep these conversations going, and to have more of them, and to take this conversation, you know, into different businesses so that they can, you know, I'd love this conversation to be a mainstream conversation, I guess, is what I'm sort of trying to say. And if you'd love to connect with me, you can find me at catbyles.com, which is my main website. And I've just set up the True Business School, which has PR with Heart, where you can basically align with your true nature and purpose, your audience, the people you're truly here to serve, not the people that you think that if you serve them, you'll get the most money. That alignment is a powerful one. Coming into your message and your channel to reach them. And when you're in that alignment and you connect to your power of your heart rather than the ego beliefs, then there's this amazing shift that I see women going through. So that's in January. It's inviting you to, and June, so inviting you into that. And you'll also find the Divine Plan and True Business. But they're all using the True Business model that leads with your heart and divine inspiration to create your true business. So that's me.
Cool. So the one thing that I would leave everybody with is that a lot has happened in this call. There's a lot of information that I'm sure was activating, triggering, inspiring, or even left you in a puddle of, I'll never be able to do all of this. Okay. It's not about integrating everything that has been said on this call and living it all in a practice starting right now. It's just like Angie was talking about, our good friend Lizzie Gilbert said, it's the small actions. So take one small thing and allow it to become a state of your life where it's not necessarily permanent yet, but it's just something that you have to remember and that you do, and you do these little things, and then one day it'll turn into a stage where it's fully integrated, and it's just that day, it just comes. You don't have to do it. It just comes. It's just fully integrated, and it's therefore who you are. It's no longer a practice, it's who you are. So take one thing at a time, practice it, let it integrate itself, and you'll be all right. And if you want to reach me, you can reach me at my website. It's lloydburnett.com. And I have a lot of cool information there for my gentle entrepreneurs and for my non-entrepreneurs with soul. And I would love to, meet anybody or work with anybody that feels a resonance.
Yeah, great.
This has been so delicious and nourishing, and just again, thanks for existing in the world, because it's not easy to find other folks like us in this space. So I feel like my world expanded 300% today. You know, I guess my takeaway would be what I would have really loved to have heard at the beginning of my journey, which is trust that feeling, trust yourself, trust your gut, trust when your icky meter goes off. You're not making it up. You're not crazy. It's real, and you can rely on it. And even if you don't know what else, just know that you can trust that feeling. If folks want to connect with me, you can go check out my website, which is untamingthewild.com, and all my social media stuff is there, and it's all super imperfect because I haven't done any of the things you're supposed to do. There's no freebie. You can't get my worksheet because that's just not how I roll, but we can definitely hang out. The first Monday of every month, I do something called Study Hall, which is a 2-hour co-working offering of just some of the raddest humans on the planet. So if you just want to come get some work done and hang out with cool people, you can come do that with us. And if you have questions about this, if you want to talk more about the stuff that we've been talking about today, reach out. Always happy to chat.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, all three of you. Thank you. Really, really wonderful conversation. And it extended, and that's because this conversation is so powerful and it's so juicy, and it's so much what we want to be bringing with the temple is these conversations. This is something that I feel very strongly about, having these. The words that came to me were like kind of, cutting edge think tank kind of, but spiritual, and love and brotherhood and unity and humanhood, and really bringing love and spiritual values and thinking back to the table, back to the conversation in business and culture and society. And it's kind of, these spaces where it's so powerful that it's like, oh yeah, this is a reality, that's something that needs to be done. And so thank you for diving in and for speaking your hearts and bringing all your beautiful wisdom to the table. Really, really beautiful. And I invite anyone who's listening, who wants to join in the conversation, to message, to comment, to find us on social media. You can find the temple, thetemple.love. You can find me. I am Edward Pike on Instagram, on my website edwardpike.net. But mainly come to the Campfire. There's a free social network that we have for temple members called the Campfire. Come and join in the conversation there. You can hang out with Kat and Angie and Lloyd in the Campfire and continue this kind of debate and conversation there. So that's an invitation to anyone who's listening. Yeah. Rob.
I just want to say thank you.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
Inspiring.
Yeah. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a beautiful evening.
Thank you. That was wonderful. Thank you so much for organising that, Ed. It's just really great.
Yeah.